Reito was a miserable loser who was made to hibernate after contracting a deadly virus that was ravaging humanity. However, when he wakes up, he finds out that he is one of the last men alive in the world and will have to lend his sausage to all the women left to repopulate the planet. It all started one morning when Reito was guided by Mira to a special room where she embraced him in a sus way, while showing him a chamber filled with several grade S baddies who were wearing nothing but their natural bathing suits, and told him that these girls were gathered to have private yoga dances with him. Several years ago, Reito confessed his love for his friend Arata, and she replied that she already knew how he felt because they'd been very close with each other from elementary school all the way to college. However, Reito ruined the romantic mood by revealing that he'd be leaving college the following year due to the fact that he'd contracted a special disease called cellular sclerosis. Arata did a quick research with her high-tech floating computers, which revealed that a pharmaceutical company with an AI was working on the cure and assured him that he'd be fine eventually. Reito, however, revealed that the cure wouldn't be ready for 4 or 5 years, which meant that he'd have to go through a process called cold sleep until then. He then asked her if she planned on saying yes to a senior named Maeda, who asked her out recently, and she got a bit upset as she replied with a question of her own, asking the diseased virgin scum if he still likes her. Reito had the intention of asking her out when he eventually wakes up from cold sleep in 5 years, but his disjointed answer made her walk away angrily. Soon he arrived at the hospital, where the friendly doctor did a physical scan on him which confirmed that he'd be cured in 5 years and capable of continuing his research in the world of medicine. Outside the cold sleep room, Reito was saying farewell to his siblings before they got interrupted by Arata, who was fighting a receptionist for not letting her in. Ryu begged the receptionist to let her in, claiming that she was family as well. Arata said her goodbyes to Reito, and he handed her a necklace he got from Temu, while telling her to return it when he wakes up. Eventually, Reito got put in cold sleep, and the sight of Arata and Mahiru yelling at him from outside the chamber made him think about how he didn't want to be left behind by the rest of the world. 5 years later, Raoul woke up and was greeted by Mira, who confirmed that he was 5 years into the future before suggesting a shower and medical scan for him. He met up with a doctor who informed him that he'd been cured of his cellular sclerosis and that his original doctor, Mr. Takagi, had passed away. Reito's pea-sized brain was about to have a meltdown, so Mira came by and offered to explain everything that happened while he was in cold sleep. Several minutes later, Reito was in a private vehicle with Mira and 2 sus-looking agents, where she introduced herself as his dedicated attendant, who was tasked with tending to his needs and handling his contact with the outside world. Reito was confused as to why he was being treated like a VIP despite being a broke waste of space and reminded her of her promise to explain everything to him. Mira revealed that a new virus known as MK virus appeared 4 years ago and spread around the world, causing a global pandemic. She also revealed that the disease was yet to have a cure despite the efforts of all the most advanced researchers, and that the world had lost over half its population due to how crazy this virus was. Reito thought Mira was jokingly telling him about a movie she saw on Netflix, but desperately ran out of their car when he realized how serious she was. A lady in the street ran away in terror when he tried to talk to her, but he noticed that every other woman around was walking towards him and acting curious about him. Reito's virgin instincts kicked in, so he ran away into another part of the street, where Mira showed up and revealed that the MK virus was a virus which affected only men, implying that the current world consisted of only women. She also revealed that only a handful of men remained in the world, and Reito angrily asked how he was still alive. She explained that his immunity to MK virus probably had something to do with the treatment for his illness, and revealed that the 5 men who survived the virus are the most valuable resources in the world. Just then, a random woman tried to pounce on him but got stopped by one of Mira's agents, who took her out with a stun gun. Mira then got on her knees and begged Reito to be the plumber, doctor, and gym instructor to as many women in the world as he could in order to save the world. A while later, Mira showed Reito a documentary about the MK virus and once again told him to have as many children as possible in order to prevent humanity from becoming extinct. He tried to bring up other alternatives, but Mira said that they'd all failed after being tested and revealed that the other man who survived the virus, named Koyuji, had already knocked up a lady with an unborn child which she called humanity's hope. Reito tried to go home, but she refused and gave him a list of hotties to choose from. The idiot still refused to comply, so she decided to have him persuaded by someone familiar to him, who ended up being Mahiru. The 2 siblings embraced before going to see Ryu, who was now in cold sleep, and Reito decided that he'd do all he can to save his older brother. On their way out, Reito asked about Arata, so Mahiru revealed that she'd been missing for 3 years and even her mom couldn't get a hold of her. Mira tried to explain that she may have gotten involved in some shady business, since the world was now very unstable, but Reito didn't believe them as he tried desperately to call Arata. Afterwards, Mira reported everything to a mysterious lady who scolded her for applying more pressure to make Reito comply with her requests. That night, Reito tried to process everything he'd heard when Mira walked in, removed her armor, and started doing sus things to him. Bro was about to fold like a lawn chair but pushed her away after remembering Arata, which made her leave the room. The next morning, Mira showed Reito a collection of the highest grade of jiggly baddies imaginable, and said they were all willing to do workouts with him at night if he pleased. Raito proved to be a dumb loser yet again as he rejected her offer while claiming that he isn't a stud horse. Mira explained that the world had become so broken that many women were dying of poverty, and the only way to save them is to make them the bearers of his children. She also revealed that the men who were all in cold sleep could eventually die within a year since the procedure was only slowing down the disease, and begged him to save the world with his white gravy. Raito asked her to give him a month to find Arata, and claimed that she was the only one he wanted to have a child with. But Mira replied she'd bring a girl to his room every night until that 1 month was up in order to stir his pot a bit. Elsewhere, Kyuji was getting massaged by some baddies while watching his favorite telenovela show, until his attendant interrupted by informing him that it was time for nighttime fun. Kyuji was shocked when he saw that the maiden selected for him was none other than his favorite TV star named Rina, who allowed him to do all the intense workouts with her that he'd fantasized about. Meanwhile, Raito enjoyed a 5-star breakfast, which Mira revealed was made by some of the top chefs in the world, which they had gathered at their facility. Raito brought up how Mira was eating an entire battalion's worth of food, and she claimed that nutrition was important, which made him wonder how she managed to stay thin despite eating like a female version of Luffy. When he brought up how large her milk factories were, Mahiru got jealous and left angrily, which made him apologize for her bratty behavior. Mira informed him that he'd assigned a special bodyguard to protect him, and a nurse to check his health, whom he'd be sleeping in the same bed with every night. Raito thought about this as he walked back to his room until he was interrupted by Kyuji, who immediately got friendly with him. Kyuji started acting goofier than Jujutsu Kaisen fans, as he claimed that the world had become every gooner's paradise. But Raito let him know that he had no intention of going to town on any girl. Afterwards, Raito took a shower and tried to cook up a strategy to find Arata until he was interrupted by a power outage in the room. He stretched out his hand in search of a towel, but ended up grabbing a large cushion instead, which belonged to a lady named Akane, who immediately started teasing him. He tried to get her away from him, but instead she got even more crazy with her physical taunts, until the young virgin passed out on top of her. Raito woke up a few hours later with a headache and realized that Akane had carried him all the way to his bedroom. Just then, a weird loli named Sui popped out of his sheets, so he asked if she and Akane were the ones assigned to him by Mira. After she confirmed his suspicions to be true, Raito deduced that Sui was the doctor while Akane was the bodyguard, and soon Akane came by to share that sleeping space with him. Raito ended up not getting any sleep that night out of fear that the girls would try to do something sus to him, and the next morning they met up with Mira to discuss his plans of finding Arata. Mira asked how he was sure Arata was alive, so he explained that he gave her his pendant, which was a good luck charm given to him by his brother, and it had a transmitter which was still giving off signals. Then Akane started trying weird things with him again, but they were interrupted when a large bear showed up in the area. When the bear charged at them, Raito jumped in and saved Sui but got injured by the bear's claws in the process. He urged Akane and Mira to run away, but Akane angrily asked Sui to do her job, so the green-haired loli delivered a brutal axe kick that knocked the monster out. Raito couldn't believe what he'd seen, so Akane explained that Sui was actually the bodyguard and tended to his injured arm in a way that made him realize that she was the personal nurse. Afterwards, Mira yelled at the incompetent staff who couldn't keep the bear out and took Raito to Arata's former lab at the medical facility, which looked ravaged after a mysterious burglar stole all of her research a couple of years back. Raito asked what she was researching, so Mira revealed that she was looking into the MK virus and working on vaccines for the disease alongside other top-class medical researchers. He found a photo from their childhood on the floor, and remembered a time when a younger Arata found out her dog had an incurable disease, and swore that she'd become a doctor who would figure out a cure for all of the world's most brutal diseases. Even back then, Raito was the ultimate simp, so he told her he'd become a doctor as well because he wanted to help her find a cure for her dog. Back in real time, Raito asked how many men in the world were in cold sleep, to which she replied that there were several million all around the world. Raito knew that even if he tried to have fun with the women in the world, he'd only get to about 100 children a year, which would be a whole lot less than the output that would come out if all the sleeping men were back in the world. Bearing this in mind, he revealed his new goal to Mira, which was to develop a cure for MK virus, and she couldn't believe the look of determination on the virgin's face. Meanwhile, Mahiru was giving treats to a bunch of children in the area when a live news broadcast came on which featured Raito. She immediately ran out of the building to search for him out of concern. In the live feed, Raito explained his situation to the world, before urging the world to remain hopeful and promising to develop a cure for the MK virus. Several hours later, Mahiru was angry with her dumb brother for gaining the attention of the whole world, but he explained that because of his actions, he now had facilities as well as the permission to conduct his research. When she came close to him, she noticed a doll from Arata's childhood, which had a special high-tech watch inside of it. Raito immediately realized that it belonged to Arata, so he rushed into the bathroom with it, and noticed that it had a special recorded message which she'd left for him. In the message, she revealed that she was researching the virus and found out that it was man-made, which meant that the authorities in the world couldn't be trusted. Later that evening, Raito met up with Mira and asked her to take a walk with him. As they strolled down the street, he told her about how she was a lot similar to Arata, and she apologized for the whole incident with the bear. Rito asked if she was upset about the fact that she was stuck being the attendant of a doofus who didn't want to play around with women, and she replied that he was a very kind man. Elsewhere, a council of mysterious women talked about everything that's happened with Reito, and also about how Kyuji had already done nighttime stretches with almost 100 women, with 28 of them already being pregnant, thanks to the hard work of his attendant Naneko. They claimed that Reito and Mira were complete failures and decided to move forward with their plans by preparing to unfreeze a third man. Elsewhere, Kyuji was having the time of his life with multiple hot girls, while a mysterious girl named Karen was appointed by the council to be the attendant of the third man. 5 years ago, a young doofus named Shota was getting bullied and insulted by a bunch of students called the Takamatsu group for loving anime and idol girls. They tried to pressure him into playing with himself in front of them, but he refused, so they covered him in filth. Shota was forced to walk around school while looking and smelling like a homeless dog, and everyone, including his former friends, refused to talk to him. He felt like an idiot because the bullies only started targeting him after he tried to save another dweeb who was getting bullied, but the guy ended up being an ungrateful twerp who ignored him like the others. He played the piano and told his teacher named Yuzuki all about his troubles, so she said some words to comfort him before he noticed that he was feeling sick. When he went to the hospital, the doctor revealed that he was suffering from cellular sclerosis, and he was shocked to hear this. The next day, Yuzuki announced to the class that he'd be taking a leave from the school due to his illness, but the students couldn't care less as they walked away without giving him as much as a get well soon. Afterwards, Shota walked into one of his bullies doing some intense acrobatics with another student named Erika in the bushes, so they immediately started beating him down and raining insults on him. On his bed that night, Shota felt glad about the fact that he wouldn't see douchebags like them anymore, but eventually broke down in tears as he wondered why he had to be the one being put through hell. Just then, he got a call from his sister who brought up the fact that their parents were always too busy to look after them and asked him about his condition. The two of them had a wholesome conversation, and life seemed fun for Shirata again, until it was time for him to be put into the cold sleep chamber. He confirmed to the doctors that no one was coming to see him, and as he closed his eyes, he wished for the world to become a better place for him when he wakes up. 5 years later, Shota woke up from his slumber to the sight of Karen throwing confetti and congratulating him for surviving his illness. She introduced herself as his attendant and said it was time for him to relive his high school years with a whole lot of fun this time. She showed him his room and told him that it was large and spacious because it was originally designed for 2 people. He asked the UW, which was the company currently controlling the world, so she revealed that they were the ones who sent her to be his attendant. Shota figured out he was hot stuff, now that most of the men in the world were 6 feet under, but he asked her if he was really the only man left in the world. Karen said there were a handful of guys still alive, including his father, but when he asked about his sister, who originally lived in America with his mother, she said she couldn't confirm their status because the UW's contact with the outside world is limited. She informed him that he'd only be allowed to be at school and offered to take care of any needs he may have. The next day, they went to school, and Shota was lost in thought as he tried to process everything he'd heard about the world so far. He was glad that the scumbags who bullied him were no longer alive, but he noticed the girls around were acting weirdly friendly towards him. After class, Karen took him to see Yuzuki, who immediately embraced him and expressed her happiness over the fact that he survived his illness. Karen gave Yuzuki a weird signal while leaving the room, and following their plan, Yuzuki invited Shota to her dorm room that night. During the sports period, Shota was thinking about his encounter with Yuzuki when Karen showed up and started advertising all of the S-tier baddies in their school to him. They included the girl that sat in front of him in class named Shunka, a rich city girl named Natsu, a G-cupped volleyball expert named Tudu, and a loudmouth lolly named Shifuyu. She told him that she had his back once again and motivated him to get closer to every single one of them. That evening, Shota went into Yuzuki's dorm room, where he was immediately disarmed by the sight of his curvy sensei in her nighttime outfit. She started some small talk before turning the lights off and kissing him as a reward for beating his illness. It didn't take long for it to turn into a Game of Thrones scene, as she got on top of him and asked him to leave everything to her. Shota felt like he descended into the land of fairies as she went to town on him, and he eventually showed her his manly side by doing some power moves on her as well. She congratulated him as they finished the workout, and Karen, who listened from behind the door, was satisfied by this outcome. The next day in class, Shota couldn't stop thinking about the fun time he had with Yuzuki until he was distracted by Natsu, who started asking him about the kind of girls he liked. He showed her a performance by his favorite idol, and they started getting friendly until Chifuyu came by and talked about how she was an even bigger fan of idols. Shota went into the school gym where he saw Tudu showing off her elite volleyball skills and got accused of staring at her enormous melons by Chifuyu. Out of jealousy, Shunka challenged Tudu to a match, and she agreed when she saw that Shota was staring at them. Tudu blasted the ball with so much force that it ricocheted off of Chifuyu's hands and blasted Shota right in the face. A while later, Shota met up with Yuzuki, who tended to his injuries, and asked if he was happy about the previous night. He said he was glad that he did it with her, and she confessed that her heart couldn't stop aching for him ever since that night. She asked if he knew a trick that could cure her, so he immediately started playing with her cannons as intensely as he could. Elsewhere, an agent from the UW complimented Karen for efforts, and Karen stayed determined not to lose to the attendance of Kyuji and Reito. Ever since then, Shota and Yuzuki got obsessed with each other, and they'd do their playtime several times at school during the day, and at night they'd have a romantic time in Shota's room. One morning, Yuzuki informed Shota that there wasn't any school that day, and invited him to spend the day with her, but all that was on his mind was how well-shaped her body was. He hugged her from behind as he wished that they could stay together forever, and she kissed him before suggesting they get back on the bed. Some days later, Karen dragged Shota to the pool area where she announced to the girls that he'd be participating in swimming that day. He was worried because his body was about as stiff as board, but Karen said he needed some exercise, and teased him for all of the late-night hooping he'd been doing with Yuzuki. She confessed that she was the one who set them up together by giving Yuzuki a bit of extra motivation, and he thanked her for giving him that assist. During acrobatics, Shota couldn't concentrate because he noticed all the girls were staring at him, and during swimming, he observed that Shoka and Tudu had a very close friendship with each other. Chifuyu was saying some corny lines she learned from anime about how she was the Hokage of swimming before getting humbled by Todo's enormous milk trucks when she walked by. Tudu apologized to Shota for the volleyball accident the other day and tried to make a request of him before Shunka interrupted by pulling off the top of her swimsuit. In response, Tudu playfully threw her into the deep part of the pool where she struggled to stay afloat. That evening, Yuzuki apologized to Shota via video call and claimed she couldn't come over that night because she had some work to do. Just then, Natsu showed up and claimed she'd be staying in his room, starting that night. Karen called and backed up that claim by informing him that the air conditioner in one of the rooms was faulty, which led to the decision for her to stay with him for a week. The next morning, Shota barely kept his cool when Natsu greeted him in the morning, and as he washed up, he wondered why he now had to spend every week with a girl from his class. After Shota dressed up for school, he asked Natsu to get changed because they were running late for school. She threw a curveball by asking him to help her change, and explaining that she normally had maids and girls around to help her do it in her mansion. He slowly helped her change into her uniform and struggled to keep it in his trousers until he noticed a scar on her lower back. During lunch period at school, he discussed the matter of the scar with Karen, who suddenly suggested he help her change during bath time. A while later, Shota filled Yuzuki in on the whole situation with Natsu, and then asked to come see her that night. She refused, so he asked if she was avoiding him over the fact that he was sharing a room with another girl. However, she said the reason she'd been keeping away from him was because it was her special time of the month, so he apologized for acting like a dummy. She advised him to get closer to all the girls at his school, but he refused, saying that he only needed her. Later that night, Shota struggled to get some sleep and wondered if Natsu liked him in a special way, but then she threw another curveball by confessing that she couldn't sleep unless she had someone else comforting her in the same bed. Being a supreme simp, Shota complied with her demands of laying beside her, and she told him about how the scar on her lower back was something she's had since she was little. She narrated how she was meant to get married after high school to a man she didn't like because of her father's business, but eventually both her father and the future husband got unalived by the MK virus. She thought of herself as a bad person for being happy that the virus came into effect, and then confessed that she's loved Shota ever since the first time she saw him. She could confess that he was happy about the way the world was as well, and they shared a kiss which led to some intense action between them. During the deed, she was shocked as to how audacious he was, and things eventually got so crazy that she made a weird sound. She apologized to him for it, but he didn't mind, and as their dance got more extreme, Natsu said she was happy that she got to spend time with him. Several days later, Rito watched a weird show they made about him on TV and asked if it was getting demands, so Mira informed him that almost the entire country was watching that show. He asked about Mahiru, so Mira revealed that she'd been spending a lot of time in the refugee area of the city. She knew that Mahiru could get hurt if people found out that she was the sister of one of the world's last men, so she decided to tell her to stop visiting that area very often. Afterwards, he met up with Kyuji, who showed him an MRI scan, and informed him that he'd soon be a father before goofing off with him a bit. Meanwhile, Shota linked up with Yuzuki and tried to apologize for enjoying himself with Natsu, but Yuzuki said it was okay because he belonged to everyone, and not just her. He asked what she meant, so she told him to ask Karen, as she ran off with tears in her eyes. Some hours later, Shota asked Karen if there were other men than him who survived the MK virus. After she confirmed that there were, he accused them of conducting a form of experiment where they used the girls to keep him in a good mood while they took data from him. He tried to convince her to leave the girls out of it, but she cut him short by suggesting they head back to class. In class, Karen revealed that the school was created for him to have fun with as many girls as possible, and confirmed that none of the girls were being coerced because they all wanted to be with him. As proof, she told all the girls to reveal their plots for him, and they all did so without a moment's hesitation, so she advised him to pick his poison. Meanwhile, the shady folks at the UW discussed how things were going well with Shota, and made a decision to remove Mira from the position of being Reito's personal attendant. Several days later, Reito was in his lab getting frustrated by the multiple setbacks he was facing in his quest to find a cure for MK virus, when he ran into a loosely dressed lady named Maria, who freaked out upon realizing that he was a man. A few hours later, he was signing autographs for a few of his female fans when a strange lady named Ria appeared and accused him of being a weirdo. He struggled to process her hateful statements before getting a call from Mira, who informed him that she was no longer his attendant. Reito barged into her office, demanding to know why she was dismissed, but he met two UW agents who introduced Maria and Rhea as his new attendants. He asked what was going on, so the two agents explained that he was given two attendants because he'd become famous around the world. They then revealed that Maria was a researcher who would assist him in his research, and Rhea was a citizens relations officer whose job was to interact with people on behalf of the UW. After Mira left, Reito whined about how he didn't want her to go, so they informed him that she could only stick around as a possible nighttime dance partner but not a personal attendant. When they left, Rhea said it was his fault that Mira lost her job because he failed to have a good time with any woman. She also informed him that she'd restrict some of his freedoms if he continued to avoid his manly responsibilities, and he argued that it wasn't fair. A few minutes later, Rhea met up with Mira and tried to badmouth Reito by calling him a worthless piece of junk who only saw women as tools, but Mira strongly disagreed with her before leaving. Reito was in a moving bus with his squad, and Maria said they were headed to a hot spring in a city named Kimon City to meet up with an important MK virus researcher in the area. Reito got so excited by this information that he kept out of his seat, causing some drinks to spill on Maria. He apologized to her from outside of the ladies' room as she changed, and she confessed that she always acted scared around him because she wasn't used to men. He brought up the fact that she studied virology and asked her how she thought the virus came to be. In response, she started talking about theories regarding the origin of viruses and implied that this virus could have existed eons ago and only manifested in the current era. Reito noticed that she'd suddenly become very talkative, and he asked about the possibility of the virus being man-made, which got her so curious that she came out with incomplete armor. He was startled by her appearance and sudden character change, but she revealed that Kimon City is the place where the first victim of the virus was discovered. Eventually, they got to the resort where Reito was enjoying an open-air bath experience until the girls walked into the pool. He tried to do the decent thing by walking away, but Akane pulled him back and asked to wash his back. He refused her offer, so she asked him to wash their backs instead. One by one, Reito washed the backs of all the girls until it got to Akane, who said he needed to do it with his bare hands since her skin was super sensitive, and Reito eventually ran off when things got too heated for him. The next day, they met up with the wife of the first MK virus victim named Taniguchi, and asked what her husband was doing when he contracted the virus. However, the old hag angrily refused to answer them because of how brutal his autopsy looked, and she claimed that she hated doctors. Reito asked what he had to do to earn her trust, but she had no interest in helping them, so she told them to scram. On their way out, Maria informed Reito that the MK virus appears in multiple spots around the world at once, and told him several theories about how it was believed to have originated. She said Taniguchi's husband was the first victim of the disease in Japan, and no one knew anything about his whereabouts or activities at the point of contracting the disease because he didn't use any form of technology. That night, Taniguchi was on a call with Arata and she asked why she didn't say or do anything despite the fact that her man was in the area. The next day, Reito tried to convince her to help them once again, but she refused to cooperate until Ria revealed that Reito was yet to engage in any intense activity with any woman. She asked to be in the room alone with him, and asked why he didn't just take the carrot being waved in his face, and instead chose to go through the hardship of trying to cure the virus. Reito told her that he had a girl he loved, and felt that putting in efforts to cure the world of the virus was his way of taking responsibility for refusing to repopulate the world himself. A while later, Reito went into the steam room of the hot spring in order to hide from some students passing by, but then a strange girl appeared and threatened to scream if he tried to leave. She decided to play a game with him which involved her keeping his secret if she leaves the sauna first, but Reito would have to do a favor for her if he gives up first. During their little heat battle, she introduced herself as an exchange student from America who loved Japan named Chloe, and asked him to satisfy his wildest desires with her. Reito resisted her temptations, and eventually the heat got so intense that she passed out. He took her to their resort where she blackmailed him once again by making him feed her some drugs using mouth-to-mouth, and the rest of the girls couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the scene. Sometime later, Taniguchi met privately with Mira and asked her about Reito. Mira said he's selfish because he refused to try to repopulate the world with any girl because of his decision to do research, but claimed that she believed he had enough conviction to save the world. When Reito got back, Taniguchi asked if he'd ever have kids with anyone around, but Reito replied that he only intended to do so with Hirata, so she agreed to talk about her husband. That night, a mysterious man came into her bedroom and injected her with a weird substance that worsened her condition. Fortunately, she'd made arrangements with one of the nurses to make sure Reito got an old photo of her with her husband, and he thanked them for their help as he left with the girls. Several days later, they arrived at a hospital which Maria revealed to be the clinic in which Taniguchi's husband was admitted after he contracted the virus. As they walked in, they noticed it was completely abandoned, and Sui got so scared that she started begging to go back home. They looked around the building, and Reito noticed that the area was a refugee camp, so he asked if the folks at the UW only cared about the people living at the core of the city. Maria replied that they were doing their best to revive the men who were in cold sleep, but they and they got interrupted by the sound of thunder, which made Sui soil herself in fear. Meanwhile, Kyuji was having a good time with a bunch of his attendants, but he realized that he was bored of eating the same set of dumplings every day and craved something more exciting. Akane met up with Rhea in the bath and brought up how Taniguchi's medical records changed, in a manner that didn't make any sense, implying that she was poisoned by someone. When Rhea tried to walk away nonchalantly, Akane pinned her against the wall and asked what she was doing the night that Taniguchi's condition worsened. Rhea said she was writing a report to her bosses about Reito's recent activities, yet confirmed that she had no alibi to back up her claims. Akane decided to let things go, but Rhea stopped her from walking away by bringing up someone named Dr. Kihara, whom she was very concerned about. The next day, Rhea returned Taniguchi's photo to Reito on their way home, and he stared at it while wondering why she wanted him to have that dusty old couple's photo. Just then, Reito got a ring on his phone, but before he could tend to it, Maria stole his attention by bringing up how a school in the area named Kimon City West was where her super smart little sister was enrolled in. Meanwhile, Kyuji drove around the city with Naneko, and he was excited about the fact that he got to choose a girl from outside. He ordered them to stop the car when he noticed Mahiru walking by the roadside and said he wanted to do some intense workouts with her because he loved her smile. Elsewhere, Reito brought Taniguchi's image close to the special watch he got from Arata's doll, causing an image to pop up. Reito noticed that the image contained loads of sensitive information about the MK virus, so he wondered how the old hag managed to get her hands on it. He realized that she was hiding that information from the UW, and became even more determined to create a cure using the information he got from her. When he rejoined the squad, he was worried because he didn't know who he could trust anymore. Later that night, Rata saved her bedroom buddy from a weird lady that was on top of her and recruited her for a secret task. The next day, Reito walked through the halls with Maria and thought about how he couldn't recreate all of the data he received from Taniguchi on account of them being damaged, so he decided to seek the help of other researchers. He asked Maria why the research on the MK virus was going slowly, and she replied that although she intended to research it more, she was only given permission to research a little. She revealed that the only ones who had access to the bulk of the information on the MK virus in the world were the major researchers at the UW headquarters in America. When she brought up how Japanese researchers were let go of, he asked if they could be brought back, and she replied that her boss had denied all her requests to do so. They were interrupted by Naneko, who asked to meet with Reito elsewhere. When they told Mahiru about the fact that Kyuji was interested in her, she loudly rejected the offer, and Rhea said it wouldn't be legal if both sides didn't consent to the arrangement. Naneko, however, brought up how stubborn Kyupi was, and begged Reito to be the one to inform him about Mahiru's rejection. Reito heeded her request, but Kyuji still begged to see Mahiru, so Reito agreed to let them have a date. Sometime later, Naneko and Rhea informed some agents from the UW about Mahiru, and they talked about how people were beginning to fight against the authority of the UW in several countries. They argued over the matter for some minutes until Rhea offered up a solution to their troubles, which was to use Reito to distribute rations in order to calm the people down. They agreed to the idea but told her to ensure that security was tight. Elsewhere, Reito was joined in the shower by Maria and Akane, who warned him that he could get into serious trouble if he continued to look for information about the MK virus from sources other than their lab. She brought up how all of the most promising virologists had been vanishing one after the other, and Reito realized that it was the cause of Arata's disappearance as well. Maria revealed that the leader of Japan's branch of the UW named Kihara was her mother, who divorced her father when she was little. Rhea showed up and interrupted them, so Akane played it like they were teaching Riso some secret stretching techniques in order to fool her. When Rhea left, Akane brought up the fact that Reito agreed to visit the refugee areas and distribute rations to make people happy, which she thought was a great idea. Several hours later, Reito, Akane, Maria, and Sui met up in a hideout they prepared in the refugee area, where Maria noticed she could access external networks blocked off inside the UW. As Reito distributed the rations, a sniper prepared to take him out before Rhea's girl pulled off an Uno reverse and took her out instead. She informed Rhea that she couldn't get an ID off of the assassin, but she had other agents on standby to take out any others that may pop up. When she asked if Rhea liked Reito, Rhea replied that he wasn't fond of him but knew that his death would bring sadness to Mira, which meant she had to protect him. Days later, Reito met up with Maria at their hideout, where she informed him that they were using an underground UW network to gain their information. He complimented her hacking skills, which she said she learnt from a genius friend of hers, who was now living in America. Reito asked if they could contact her to get some research data, but Maria said it wasn't possible because their network was even more locked off than Japan's. Soon Maria found out that her genius friend named Hatsumi was hospitalized in Japan, alongside other researchers who were meant to be in America. When they brought up that Taniguchi's husband was also sent to that hospital, Reito realized that the hospital was the place where the MK virus was first developed. Meanwhile, Shadow woke up one night and couldn't get the words of Karen about how the school was made to be his personal playground out of his head. Natsu tried to make some moves on him, but he resisted and went outside for a walk where he met Karen. She informed him that he wasn't allowed to leave school grounds, so he asked if he was forced to live in that area forever. She started joking about how he was more precious than every Bitcoin in the world, and ultimately said he'd be free to leave when he graduates as she let him back inside. As parting words, she advised him to have fun with Natsu, and said that he'd be getting a new roommate soon. The next day in school, the ladies were asked to draw lots from a box to determine who would be Shota's next roommate, and both Chifuyu and Shunka picked the wrong ones. Shuka couldn't believe the fact that someone as worthless as himself was being treated as a prize for baddies, and before he knew it, a gorgeous girl picked up the winning lot. A while later, he was using the bathroom when the winning girl named Rika stormed in and demanded some personal playtime with him. He suddenly got a flashback which made him realize that the lady was very similar to his former bully, Erika, so he ran away from her. He went into a private room in school which he used to hide in during his previous days of being a punching bag, and he was shocked to see Shunka in the room. She asked about the scars which she saw on his body during their swimming exercise, so he told her all about how he used to be a footstool for scumbags in school, and even got abandoned by his friends. He started tearing up just remembering it, but got stunned when Shunka showed him some of her own bruises and confessed that she used to get bullied as well in middle school. She said that although she'd made friends in their school, she still found that room as a form of fortress of solitude where she could chill and forget the bad stuff. They realized they were very similar, so they eventually showed each other all of their bruises and things eventually got as intense as every dark web classic on the hub. Afterwards, Shirata took her to his room and Rika was angered by the fact that he brought another woman into the room, so she started nagging. She said it was her turn to have him for the week, but Shunka argued that it was Shota's choice, so Raka started playing the victim card. She figured out that the two of them had already messed around together, so she took off her plot armors which started a catfight between her and Shunka over who gets to play with Shota. Later that evening, Shota realized how much he missed Yuzuki, but she still didn't pick up his calls, so he assumed that she was avoiding him because of the fact that he was toying with other girls. He wondered what to do next until Tudu showed up and sat beside him. She asked about his life with Rika as a roommate, and he said it was exhausting because she was someone he never talked to before. Shota couldn't keep his eyes away from the mountains on her chest when she asked about the bruise on his forehead. He said he was okay, but she still groveled as she asked to make it up to him anyway. She could. He asked her to reveal her milk factories, and was surprised when she did it without any hesitation. He immediately went to town on them and realized how soft they were, but stopped himself after a few minutes before running off. The next day, he met Tudu cleaning up the gym and apologized for taking advantage of her. She asked him to make it up to her by helping her with the cleanup, but it didn't take long before she locked the doors and started getting rough with him. She tied him up and did all sorts of weird stuff to him, even after he tried to talk her out of it. She told him about how she couldn't stop thinking about him, and they ended up doing everything she'd fantasized about doing to him. Afterwards, she apologized repeatedly to him, but he didn't seem to mind at all. Shouta and Karen reached an arrangement which temporarily removed Rika as his roommate, allowing him to sleep peacefully for a couple of days. One day in class, Karen announced to the class one of the girls in class would be assigned to Shota every day for the meantime, and she picked Rika to be the first girl. She explained that the girl's duty would be to tend to his needs, and that the reason the ladies would switch daily rather than weekly was because she wanted him to get closer to every girl in school at a faster rate. She added an extra stipulation, which was that he had to give the assigned girl a morning kiss as a reward for taking care of him, but he refused to do so when Rika came by for it. Karen noticed he was embarrassed, so she asked the rest of the class to look away while Rika kissed him. His mint-sized brain was about to go into overdrive, and he tried to run but stumbled onto one of the tables and fell. Karen noticed that he hurt his hand, so she took him to the nurse's office, where the nurse decided to give him a full body scan. After the scan, Karen came by with Tudu, Shunka, and Natsu to help him feel better. All three of them started to get crazy with him, and decided to use rock, paper, scissors to determine the order at which he plays with them. During his playtime, Karen told a mysterious girl named Hoshino about how Shota had become the ultimate gigachad, despite only losing his virginity a month ago. The next day, Shota met up with Chifuyu, who asked to be his roommate. When he asked why she liked him, she said it was his face, and he laughed out loud because he knew that he looked like a deranged ape. She also said that he was a nice guy who looked out for his classmates, so he kissed her in the forehead and thanked her. He also told her to grow out a proper pair of melons, and this made her so angry that she yelled slurs at him and ran off. That evening, Karen brought Shota some news about Yuzuki transferring schools for 2 years, and he was absolutely devastated to hear this. He lashed out at her out of anger, but she assured him that he'd see her soon. The next day, Karen informed him that he was assigned a random girl in their class, and he immediately got cozy with her. He finally realized how amazing it was that he could have any of the girls he wanted, so he took the opportunity every night. One morning, Karen announced that a transfer student would be joining them, and Shota was shocked to see that it was a girl named Shion. Back in Shota's former school days, Shion used to be the beauty queen of their school, and many guys found it hard to believe that she didn't have a boyfriend. One day, when Takamatsu and his guys were kicking Shota around like a soccer ball, Shion walked in the area with her friends and laughed as they belittled him. In the present day, Shota was on the roof doing some thinking, when Shion walked by and begged him to help her achieve her dream of becoming an entertainer. Shota asked if they told her about the school, and when she said yes, he asked her to take off all her armor. She acted confused by his words, so he walked away nonchalantly and said that he had no intention of helping her after what she did to him. Shion met up with Shunka and Natsu and asked them questions regarding the things that Shota liked, but Natsu replied harshly by saying she'd never consider her as a classmate. After they walked away, Tudu came by and told Shion about how every girl in their class were rivals, but claimed that Shion was the sole exception, which was why she refused to help her as well. Shota asked why Karen brought her to the school despite the fact that she wasn't a proper fit, so she explained that Shion begged to be added to the school to further her goal of being the next Sabrina Carpenter. She went further by revealing that the demand for idols and actresses were in the gutter ever since the MK virus wiped out the men, which was the reason it was hard for aspiring entertainers like Shion to break out. Karen then got to the point by asking Shota to do a private workout session with her so she would be recognized by UW directors and get the career of her dreams. Shota finally understood why she was so desperate, but he was still concerned because of the fact that she was only concerned about becoming an entertainer and didn't actually like him. He presumed that he wouldn't enjoy it if she wasn't into him, so Karen advised him to give her a chance. Karen made Shion wear compromised outfits in class in order to get Shusada to roll with her, and eventually he invited her to the roof for a good time. On the roof, Shota promised her that he'd talk to the UW executives after their fun time and get her the job she wanted, but stipulated that some random girls from class had to be around to watch them. She finally realized that he was trying to humiliate her in the same way she previously did with him, but he didn't hold back as he went commando on her while the girls watched in terror. That evening, Shuada told Karen that he was enjoying school, so she decided to take his experience to the next level by asking him to try something extreme that he'd never tried before. In response, Shuada made a joke about having a good time with Karen before requesting for her to bring someone in particular to their school. Elsewhere, Reito and company were baffled about their new discoveries about the hospital where MK virus emerged from, and he suggested that they needed to go check the place out, with the secret intention of recreating the data he got from Arata. Several days later, Shota helped the school nurse do some measurements, and she revealed that the purpose of it was to allow him to get a good layout of their body figures. That evening, Karen brought the girl which Shota requested, and said she was able to find her so quickly thanks to the connections of the UW. She took him to Erika, his former bully who was chained up in a secluded room, and told him about how she was doing janitor work to survive. Arata tried to act as audaciously as she normally did with Shota, but Karen reminded her that she was nothing more than a speck underneath his shoe in the current world, so she apologized. After Karen left, Shota remembered how she used to humiliate him with the Takamatsu group, and immediately dumped a bucket of water on her. When he held her in a threatening position, she thought he intended to have his way with her, but instead he dragged her into the bathroom and showed her all of the scars which her boyfriend left on him. He asked her to lick them, and as she did so, he laughed maniacally. Meanwhile, Karen reported everything going on to a UW agent, and they talked about the different powerful people in the world who would soon be making a move. The next day, Karen gave the girls in class a pep talk about how they needed to be more aggressive in their temptations of Shota in order to increase their hierarchy at the school, so even the NPCs in class started having steamy kissing sessions with Shota. Some hours later, Natsu met up with Shota in the pool area and tried to get him in the mood until the other girls showed up and started a swimming race. While the rest of the class were having a swimming race, Natsu came up with a weird way of bonding with Shota and Tudu, which eventually led to some underwater wrestling between them. Later that evening, Shota enjoyed the comfort of several more girls and thought about how he wanted this dream life he was living to last forever. The next day, he chose an innocent-looking lolly in his class to have fun with that evening, and the girl was shocked to see Erika chained up on the floor of his bedroom. To add salt to injury, Shota made fun of Erika and her former boyfriend until she eventually crashed out and told him to get over it since it was 5 years ago. Shota angrily told her that it didn't feel that long at all to him, and proceeded to have a fun time with the innocent loli, while Arata watched. Later that night, Shota woke up to see Arata begging for drugs, but he gave it to her in the most embarrassing way possible before going back to sleep. Several days later, an official from the United States was on a plane to Japan discussing her agency's plans to bring Reito to the US with Chloe, who was her superior, and Chloe advised her to stay sharp. The UW officials in Japan discussed them in their office, and they identified the agent as Mansfield from the Peacekeeping Activities Bureau, which was an organization that monitors potential threats to the UW's leadership. Elsewhere, Shota met up with the girl he was assigned on a certain day and was stunned after he invited her to his room, and she replied that it was her special time of the month. Later that evening, the girl from Shota's class was on a call with Arata, who informed her that the World HQ messenger was on the way, which meant that their plan would soon be put into effect. The next day, Shota played around Natsu, Tudo, and Shunka in the girls' dorm bath, and their fun eventually got so intense that they were all making weird noises. Afterwards, Rika showed up and demanded to have her own bit of sweet time with Shota, so he showed her all the intense martial arts moves in his arsenal, which made her express her pleasure loudly as well. Shota eventually became the ultimate Giga Chad, as he had a good time with any girl he wanted in every part of the school, including the library, nurse's office, and even in class. At the same time, Reito and his squad visited the abandoned hospital from their research, where Reito worried that they might be getting watched by the UW authorities, but Akane shrugged it off as she claimed that they needed to explore that hospital to discover some important secrets. She disarmed him by asking how he felt about Mira, and he replied that he thought she was a wonderful person, which made her tease him for being a virgin. After goofing off a bit, the gang moved deeper into the hospital and discovered an air duct that was big enough to accommodate a human body. Meanwhile, the US agent met up with Dr. Kihara and informed her that she wasn't Mansfield, but rather Mansfield's aide. She claimed that the real Mansfield was in a very important place, and Kihara immediately realized where she meant. At the same time, Reito and his gang crawled through the air ducts, but they were so overweight and disorderly that they ended up falling out of it and into a stack of boxes. There they met the technical director of the UW, and Maria asked about her friends as well as the other researchers. The director replied that they wouldn't leave the facility alive now that they'd seen it. But before her associates could blast their head off, they were shot down by some special soldiers. Chloe then walked into the area and introduced herself as Chloe Mansfield, who was in charge of the Department of Peacekeeping Operations at the UW, and revealed that she was pretending to be an exchange student in order to investigate Rito and the 5 directors of the UW in Japan. When the building started rumbling, Chloe informed them that the building was rigged with a powerful explosive, which meant that they needed to escape quickly. They all ran as fast as they could into a private helicopter, which Chloe prepared for them as the building blew up, and Reito felt dissatisfied by the fact that they couldn't find out anything from their visit. Meanwhile, the girls in Shouta's class were all arguing over who would have the privilege of being his girl for the day, so he came up with an idea that would satisfy them all. So he lined all 5 of them up and did all forms of advanced techniques on them, while thinking about how he intended to enjoy every bit of this world, which he saw as his own personal paradise. He spent the next couple of days doing extreme stuff with multiple girls at once, until a certain night when Karen caught Shion trying to escape the school and head back to Tokyo. She yelled at Karen about how there was no need to create such an obscene place since there were other ways of making children. But they were interrupted by the sound of the explosion at the hospital. On the helicopter, Chloe asked Reito if he was the only survivor, and he wondered if she really didn't know about Kyuji and the rest, while she brought up other mysterious things she'd noticed in Japan. Kihara told the rest of the UW board in Japan about how the technical director was conducting some shady research, but Chloe's aide named Hope accused her of being involved in it. Hope asked Kihara if there were other MK virus survivors other than Reito, so she decided to place her under arrest. Unfortunately, Hope pulled an Uno reverse card, as the agents Kihara sent to arrest them now turned their guns at her. The agents claimed that they'd been informed by another board member named Shutout about all of the Sue's stuff that Kihara had been up to, and Hope officially placed Kihara and the 2 other board members she was working with under arrest for a bunch of accusations, including manufacturing the MK virus, ignoring orders from the top, and illegally exploiting Japanese people. Back in the helicopter, Chloe informed Rito that the Japanese directors had been lying to him the whole time about helping him find a cure, which made him realize that Arata got endangered by studying the MK virus. She then brought up the fact that the decrease in population has caused an overall drop in the economy of the country, and said that Kihara caused an increase in terrorist acts around the world when she publicly introduced Rito. She told them the biggest shocker of them all, which was that Arata was now working with a terrorist group that opposed the UW's rule, and he couldn't help but remember how much of a sweet girl she used to be. At the same time, Shirata came back into his room and noticed that Arata had a cute face when she slept, so he wrapped her up in a blanket before they were distracted by an explosion at the school. Reito and the gang who watched from the helicopter got scared, and Chloe added to their worries by informing them that one of the surviving men had been captured by terrorists. Shota woke up in a hospital bed after dreaming about Yuzuki, and Karen informed him that he was in a hospital in Kimon City. The nurses left after confirming he was okay, and Karen apologized for all the trouble he was going through. Shota said it was no problem and asked her to tell him what happened at the school. She revealed that terrorists tried to snatch him, and when he acted surprised, she explained that there were people who weren't happy that the UW was in charge of the works because of how unevenly they distributed resources to the people. They were interrupted when Shota's harem burst through the door and hugged him out of concern for him. That evening, Karen and Shota met up outside of the hospital, and he was concerned that they'd get attacked again, but she quelled his worries by revealing that there were electric fences all around them. She brought up how he shielded Erika during the blast and asked if he still hated her, and Shota responded that his actions were purely based on reflex. She cautioned him not to try any more Superman antics because his body was highly valuable, which made him boast about being the only man left in the world. She enlightened him that there were 4 other guys resistant to the MK virus who all previously suffered cellular sclerosis, and he immediately got scared that they could start bullying him again. Karen then told him about her plans to move to Tokyo with him after the drama was over, and expressed her frustrations about how their fates were in the hands of the UW messenger and her team. Shota asked what she was after, which made Karen reveal her intentions to become the #1 woman in the world. He said her goal was pretty wild, but she replied that he intended for him to become the #1 man in the world for it to happen. As she walked away, he asked why she didn't try to have his child, so she used a football analogy as she explained that she'd rather be a coach than a player on the field. He agreed to help her out with her ambitions, so they shook hands in solidarity, unknown to them that Arata's agent was watching them from afar. The agent reported to Arata that she failed to capture Shota, but Arata revealed that she and her crew had already captured the fourth man that was resistant to MK virus. At the same time, Reito and his gang were back at their base, where Chloe told them about how the terrorist group used her arrival in Japan to further their goals, and Reito asked what these terrorists wanted. She guessed that it was because of the Japanese dictators at the UW and revealed that Arata was one of the terrorists' leaders. Rito asked what the next move was, but she changed the subject by bringing up how amazing it was that Rito refused to give in to the Japanese branch's orders, unlike Kyuji. Later that evening, Chloe reported to her leaders that she'd managed to gain control of all the MK virus-resistant men apart from number 4, who was with the terrorists. They asked her why Kyuji chose to comply with their demands to stop playing around with his maidens, and she guessed that it was because he fell in love. Meanwhile, Rito was on his bed wondering why Arata chose to become a terrorist until he got a signal which revealed the location of Arata's pendant. Before he could pinpoint it to a spot in Japan, Akane walked in and asked to discuss it with him in the bathroom. At the same time, Chloe met up with Kyuji and asked why he was keeping a girl other than his attendant in his room. He tried to explain that the girl named Kitayama was his lover, but she said it was against the commands to keep her there, which made the two of them argue. Akane told Reito that she didn't believe her mother was the one behind the MK virus because she used to be a hard-working, virtuous woman who prioritized work over her family. She got emotional as she brought up how her mother didn't attend her brother's funeral, which was due to the fact that Kihara was working hard to help people during the pandemic. He comforted her and said he'd ask Chloe to make plans for them to have a talk with Kihara. Just then, Arata started a live broadcast, where she explained that she and her squad named Izanami aimed at freeing the world from the UW's rule. She brought up how the UW had been lying to everyone using the fourth man named Zen, whom everyone was surprised to see. She explained that the UW authorities kept his existence secret from the rest of the world, and further proved her claims by showcasing the remains of satellites abandoned in a factory which contained high amounts of the MK virus. The president of the company behind this calamity was one of the current leaders of the UW, which meant that the leaders of the UW are the ones who spread the virus. She claimed that the UW are trying to create a world composed of only women, and revealed that they were already researching ways of making children using only female genes, which meant that the UW's ideal world was close to becoming reality. Arata then demanded on behalf of Izanami that all the male survivors of the virus, including those in cold sleep, should be handed over to them and advised everyone in the world to protect any men around them at all costs. Before she could give her own version of the Irwin Smith speech, the feed got cut off and redirected to the UW newscaster, who claimed that everything Arata said was a lie. Reito rushed to demand answers from Chloe, but she tried to gaslight him into believing that Arata was the bad guy and forced him to leave using weird tactics. Afterwards, she contacted her leaders, who informed her that they'd completely brainwashed all of the women in power and that their plan was going smoothly, before warning her to be careful around Rito. After Akane had a brief talk with her Kihara, she and the gang walked into Reito's room, where they met up with Shota, who was now looking like a bootleg Michael Jackson. Apparently, Karen put Shota into an anti-aging pod which granted him the ability of maintaining his current look for decades, and he woke up looking more manly than before. Shota introduced himself to Reito and told him that he used to live in Keimon City, but was forced to relocate to their area after a terrorist attack. Karen asked Reito about Chloe, so he explained that she was acting shady because she tried to convince them that the Izanami squad were evil terrorists, but he also had positive feelings towards her over the fact that she saved his life. Maria rushed into a room where Shota's harem was chilling and embraced Chifuyu, who was her litter sister, out of relief that she survived the terrorist attack. The girls had a bit of small talk before Chifuyu asked Maria if she'd had some late-night fun with Reito, and Maria got so rattled that she spilled her drink. A bit later, Shota asked Karen if Yuzuki was in that facility, but she said she was sent somewhere safe after the terrorist attacks, which even the UW leaders weren't aware about. Raito met up with Mira in his room and asked to talk in the shower, where they were safe from the ears of the UW agents. There, he brought up everything that's happened recently and asked Mira to join him and the rest of the gang in escaping from that facility. He babbled on for minutes about how he always could depend on her and asked her to join him in finding out the truth behind the state of the world. Mira rejected his offer and said she'd only come with him if he played around with her right there. Reito's face was bright red, but he accused her of not wanting to go with him, so she broke down in tears as she confessed that she couldn't even if she wanted to. As she cried, she remembered her past days when she saw Reito for the first time while stuck in a lab, and Reito tried to console her using a bit of his riz until they were interrupted by Hope and her guards, who broke into the bathroom. Hope demanded that they come with her, and on the way she informed them that the rest of his gang had already been taken in. She said they were coming to America with her because they couldn't risk him falling into the hands of the Izanami group, but they were interrupted by Sui and Akane, who took out Hope's guards. Hope stopped them by holding Mira at gunpoint, but Ria made an appearance alongside Maria by firing a taser shot right in Hope's neck, which took her out. During the chaos, Chloe met up with Shota and Karen in a living room, where Karen asked to make a deal with her before requesting to meet with her bosses, who were called the Three Magi. These were three geniuses who ran the UW who were of different age and origins but share the similarities of being super smart and hating men. Chloe said she would give them the chance if Shota cooperated with her, and Karen made a third request, which was for them to let her be the one to rule Japan as the National Affairs Director of the UW. Meanwhile, Reito and the girls made it to a secluded room where he reunited with Mahiru and some other old associates of theirs. After a bit of goofing around, Rhea informed everyone that they'd only be staying in that room until sunset, when they'd begin moving to another location. Reito thanked Rhea for helping them, but she said she was doing everything for Mira and not him. That evening, Shido felt like the king of the world as he got some personal care from all four of his girls at the same time. Afterwards, he met up with Karen, who told him that he was acting more like a grown-up. He asked about Chloe's response to their requests, and she said it was still pending, before revealing to him that Reito had escaped the facility. At the same time, Rhea took Rito and the others to a ship where she and Mira parted ways with them. He thanked her for her help, and she promised to look after his older brother Ryu, so he thanked her again. He and Mira exchanged some heartfelt parting words with each other, before he tightly embraced her and swore that he'd come back for her. Akane introduced him to Arata's agent, who informed him that they were headed to Taiwan where they'd meet up with Arata, who said she wanted to meet him. On the ship, Raito was thinking about Mira, until he was distracted by Maharu, who handed him a cell phone that was ringing for him. The caller ended up being Kyuji, who complimented him for his brave decision before saying some manly parting words for him. After Kyuji hung up, Naneko told him that she'd make sure his maidens were safe, and asked if he intended to escape like Reito. Kyuji, however, pulled up an image of all his pregnant partners and said that there was no way he'd leave all of them behind. Back at the facility, Chloe ordered her guards to put Mira and Rhea in cells, and decided to move to the next phase of her plan to exterminate all men from the world. Meanwhile, Karen took Shota to the same room filled with baddies which Mira took Reito when he freshly woke up, and he noticed a nice pink-haired girl who Karen revealed was an actress. Karen also informed him that she'd cut a deal with Chloe that allowed him to have fun times with girls despite other numbers being prohibited from doing so, and he absolutely loved it. Eventually, Rito and the squad arrived at Taiwan where he met Arata again, and they had a tearful reunion before swearing to each other that they'd create a cure to the MK virus together. Do you think Reito and Aratas would succeed in creating a cure for the virus? Let us know in the comment. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.